Kansas City Chiefs are going into Las Vegas. The Kansas City Chiefs are 2.5-point favorites. Where both of these teams stand. So the Chiefs just came off a week in which they were able to take advantage of a Aaron Rodgers-less Packers team. Jordan Love struggled in his pro debut. The Las Vegas Raiders are coming off a game in which a lot of stories, a lot of things going on in that locker room. They ended up losing a game to the Giants. And I don't think too many people would necessarily hold it against the Raiders losing that game, considering what they had to deal with in the recent week. Obviously, it started with the John Gruden stuff. Henry Ruggs was involved in there with his unfortunate accident. And then they also had to release David Arnett, their starting quarterback this week and first-round pick from a year ago. Raiders got a lot of different things going on here, but I'm going to tell you, I have them winning this game. I think that the Raiders have been playing better football. I understand the loss to the Giants. I write it off as 1 week dealing with a lot of shit kind of game. I said from the start, the Raiders would split with the Chiefs. And I think that that split comes more likely in them winning the game in Las Vegas than them going into Arrowhead and winning that game. So I'm going to stay consistent here. I'm going to pick them to win this game because, man, the Chiefs, they are just struggling. It is becoming so apparent that in a game in which the other team literally didn't have their starting cornerback, they couldn't run away with that victory. That victory was still a one-score game. You talk about the too high safety thing that everyone's talking about at the moment and how that's hindered Patrick Mahomes' ability to be an elite performer. The fact that he struggled in fantasy football has been all too apparent for someone that has him in multiple leagues like myself. I was listening to an interesting take on this. I was listening to some thoughts on why Patrick Mahomes could potentially be struggling or why this year where they're having to face a little bit of adversity is hitting the Chiefs. Cecil Lammey, he's a beat reporter for the Denver Broncos, host of Football Guys, was talking about the idea that has it become a problem that Patrick Mahomes leads by fun rather than fear. Whereas you talk about some of the more elite quarterbacks in football, some of the best quarterbacks over the recent decade or recent generations like Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, that yes, they can have fun and enjoy the game of football, but when the going gets tough, they know how to get in guys' faces and really motivate them to perform. You talk about Tom Brady even just last year getting on a rookie tackle and Tristan Wirfs begins to play his best football. I'm saying that there's multiple ways to lead a game. And yes, we do respect and enjoy and the admiration that Patrick Mahomes has, the fun and enthusiasm he has in a game. But I think when you have a team that's struggling like the Chiefs are, this is where Patrick Mahomes needs to step up as a leader and motivate in a different way. He needs to find new pitches because I mentioned it last year that I didn't think that Patrick Mahomes was a finished product. I thought he could only get better. And so often we talk about how you learn in life. You tend to learn more in failure than you tend to learn in success. I think that this is a big opportunistic year for Patrick Mahomes to really learn as a leader, learn different ways to motivate guys as a leader. Because if we expect him to be that Hall of Fame quarterback, that guy who's dominating the league for the next 10 to 20 years like we do, then he needs to stop just being one of the guys, one of the teammates. He needs to almost become something bigger. He needs to be just that pure franchise quarterback that knows how to keep guys accountable whenever they're not performing, like his offensive line or like Mecole Hardman, these third wide receivers for the team, these backup running backs they've had to put in. Patrick Mahomes needs to be that leader on the field as opposed to just rely on the coaching staff, Andy Reid. I think this is where Patrick Mahomes takes that next evolution. But in terms of week 10 in the NFL, I think that it's going to be another rough week where they're still trying to get over the things. Gus Bradley, he's not going to change up the game plan. He knows what Patrick Mahomes is struggling with. So, he's going to be more than happy to take advantage of that himself with his Las Vegas Raiders defense.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is that the Kansas City Chiefs are trying to now game plan around their inefficiencies at this point, which is a fascinating evolution because it's hard to develop these things really quickly. I don't know if I spoiled the helmet there, but yeah, I got the Kansas City Chiefs this week because I keep betting them every damn week. I'm like, this has to be the week. Last week I took them with the points against the Packers and they were covering all the way through. And then the backdoor cover at the end by Jordan Love just made me upset. But Kansas City against Green Bay, which again, Green Bay is a very specific case, but I watched that entire game. So I did actually watch the film on this one. So here's how the game started for the Kansas City Chiefs, which is Patrick Mahomes had on the first drive 5 completions for 25 yards. In the middle of the second quarter, he was 10 for 13 for 40 yards passing. And then by the time they got to the middle of the third quarter, Mahomes was 14 for 28 for 85 yards, which basically means that every time they tried to throw the ball into the secondary, it was an incompletion. And every time they got a completion, it was a check down little pass, which basically means the way they're scheming around this is the only way we can't be beat is by not committing turnovers. And if we're not going to commit turnovers, we're just going to run the ball every time. And when we're not running it, we're going to throw screen passes like the boring Steelers offense. That's not a good place you want to be when you're trying to emulate the Steelers offense, because that's your only way to winning. Now, I think Mahomes is going to have a bunch of passing yards this week because the Raiders do not have an elite secondary like the Green Bay Packers do. The other reason I'm picking the Chiefs is because the Raiders can't be for real. It's just not allowed. The Raiders are not allowed to be legitimately good. I don't think that this Raiders team is really good, but this seems to be a theme of our pod this week, which is outside of, we know the Titans are going to win the AFC South. We know the Chiefs are going to make the playoffs. We know Baltimore's good. We know Buffalo's good. Outside of those 4 teams, who else is going to get the playoff spots? Is it Cleveland? Is it Cincinnati? Is it the New England Patriots? Is it the Chargers? Is it the Raiders? Are the Colts going to make a late drive in the season? I'd say no to the Colts one, but they're still technically in it. We don't know what it's going to be at this point. There's a lot of teams fighting for middle of the road playoff spots and teams that I think expect to make the playoffs at this point. The Raiders are probably one of them. I think the Raiders are going to fall off hard coming up here once they start playing some of these AFC West teams. And I think that they're going to lose this game, but I don't feel confident in the Chiefs anymore. The Chiefs have legitimate problems that I can see with my own eyes just from watching an entire game. I'm like, oh, this, and watching part of the Monday night game against the Giants, where I'm like, oh, this is where all of the problems are going to stem. And maybe it takes one play where Patrick Mahomes beats the double high safeties and gets a, 50-yard pass to Tyreek Hill in coverage, where he does the thing where he throws it 50 yards but puts it in a 6-inch window. Maybe it only takes one of those for defenses to start respecting Mahomes that way, where they now have to bring themselves up a little bit. Maybe that's all it's going to take, but I think Kansas City is still going to win this game. Their defense has gotten better as the season's gone along, so congratulations to the Chiefs defense. You are no longer one of the worst defensive units in the history of the NFL. You are only a bad defense.
Okay,
now.
well, let's talk about that. Playing Jordan Love and playing Daniel Jones will help that number out tremendously.
Yes, this is true. This is true. When they play the Baltimore Ravens again, or when they play the Buffalo Bills again, or maybe when they play the Chargers again, I think they're going to have to start winning those shootouts again, which is a real concern for Kansas City. Like when they get to the playoffs, they are vulnerable against every one of those 4 teams we mentioned off the top, whether it's the Titans, the Ravens, the Bills. You could throw the Chargers in there if you really feel good about the Chargers, but they're vulnerable against all of those teams. They can lose to any one of them and they can beat any one of them, which is, again, a conversation for down the road, because when it comes to Kansas City, it's always in the macro, because they're always just playing for those 4 games in the playoffs. At least the last 3 years, they've been playing for just those playoff games. And that's not necessarily the case this year. They have to work out some flaws if they want to get back to even the AFC Championship at this point, because Baltimore and Buffalo have flaws, but they're not as big of glaring issues that Kansas City has right now. So for this game, roll with the Chiefs because I can't do it. I can't abandon my boy Patty, even though he's giving me reason after reason to jump the ship. Like the fact that in the last 3 games, they have now scored a combined, I think, 36 points. That's averaging 12 a game. That would be the worst in the NFL this season over the last 3 games.
I think the Chiefs still have it in them where it just takes one play for them to change the course of a game. But the fact that the teams are just playing them to limit those opportunities has become one of the biggest detriments to their ability to put up those insane offensive performances. And like I said, this could be just a year in which they grow from it. They have to learn that things don't just come easy. Patrick Mahomes has to learn that you're just not in the AFC Championship game automatically every single season like it's been throughout the course of his career. The Patriots dynasty, what happened with the Patriots, that's a rarity in the NFL. And the fact that they're 5-4, bless their heart, they're lucky enough to be 5-4 at this point. They could very easily have been 4-5 if Aaron Rodgers was healthy in that game.